Hello everybody, welcome back to the Panel by Panel Comics channel with your host Jay. Today is the day for my panel by panel comic review from the books I pulled last week, so let's go ahead and get started right away. First book that we're going to be talking about is The Avengers. This is issue number 36, a 32-page comic for the price of $5. Now this was just a big old goodbye to Jed MacKay's run and the Avengers as a whole, as Captain Marvel went one by one with each of the members of the Avengers and basically just said her goodbye to all of them. She started with Black Panther, and then she worked her way one by one, going to Storm, Sam Wilson, the Scarlet Witch with, of course, Wanda, and then Vision, and then ended up with Iron Man. But this was just a whole story about Captain Marvel disbanding the Avengers and saying, hey guys, our run was great, this is it, it's time for a new group to come in and to take over for us. That hasn't been named, but it was kind of, I guess it was leading to the effect of Captain Marvel going to be picking a new chair that will be picking the new group of Avengers for us. So overall, it was okay. This wasn't my best or most favorite issue, but overall, Avengers number 36, I gave a D, but it wasn't its fault really. It was just the fact that there were other good comics available this week. Next, we have X-Men. This is issue number 26, back-to-back Marvel comics, coming in towards the bottom, but this is a 32-page comic for the price of $5. Written by Jed MacKay, the art done by Nate Diaz, and honestly, Natho Diaz. If the art wasn't as good, this could have been lower ranked for me, but X-Men, it was an okay issue. Glob Herman definitely carried it. There were many different plot points introduced, such as this very beginning where we see Psylocke and Cyclops going to check on a sheriff who actually got essentially kidnapped, and we don't know where she is, but this deputy that goes by the name of Deputy Smith, he's kind of worried, and he thinks that the only people that can help are the X-Men, even though that Psylocke is she doesn't want to. And then they go and track this sheriff, and we see that she was kidnapped by this character of Maxine Danger, and it looks like Maxine Danger is going to be the next little villain for this little arc for the X-Men coming out of the Age of Revelation event. We see a lot of plot points like Glob Herman, maybe he's dead. We saw some shots that were basically cutting away from Glob Herman with a gun to his head. So who knows what could have happened there. We also saw Psylocke. She's going to go on her own little mission because Grey Crow got beat up after a robbery and he was in the hospital. So a lot of different plot points, but overall this issue alone, I'm going to have to give it a C. It was still good. A lot of different plot points like I mentioned, but I gotta see a little bit more. I'm gonna probably get one more issue of the X-Men because there were a lot of plot points in this one. If the next one isn't good, I'm officially dropping this comic book, but I really hope I don't have to because I really like the X-Men. Next, we move to an Ignition Press book. This is The Beauty. This is issue number 4, 32 pages for the price of $5. We start off by seeing this detective go onto this island, and she's seeking the person about she's more seeking the history of the Beauty and the origin of it, the maybe creator of it, just how it became to be. And we also go to the car wash where we see, I'm going to have to show this again because there's some nudity in this comic, just beware of that. But we see the detective in that we've really gotten to know more, Detective Creighton, and he's talking to his superior about the man that is in a mask. That's really all that they call him is the masked man, but he is the bad guy essentially in this comic, and he's the one that is kind of helping the higher ups that created the Beauty to stop these people from looking into them. And we get deeper into it. We see the weatherman basically have the police come to his door, and he has to go on the run. And we also get an intervention from the masked man, and basically we see that he's trying to kill people and that he's trying to stop Detective Creighton from looking into it more. And then at the very end, we leave on a cliffhanger about who might be at the very beginning of the origins of the Beauty. So overall, this was a good issue. It moved along the story. I give the Beauty a C+. This was a pretty good comic book, And by the way, I have moved to letter grades. I think it's just easier, at least in the edit for me personally. Let me know what you guys think. Do you like the numbers or do you like the letter grading? Let me know down in the comments below. That would be very helpful. But go ahead, if you've already made it halfway through this video, go ahead, like, comment, and subscribe for more comic content. So the next book that we have our first DC book. This is Absolute Flash. This is issue number 12, a 36-page comic for the price of $5. Jeff Lemire continuing his story from basically this exact point with Wally going up against Thawne in this issue, and it was okay. It really left a lot to be desired. We saw a lot of plot points that could be going into the next little volume of Absolute Flash. Just like that, you saw the little Gorilla Grodd go to his dad and they end up escaping Fort Fox. But the main part of this issue was the battle between Thawne and Wally West. And you see his dad crying and he's like, "I saw you are incredible, son." And he finally gets to be the dad that he never really was for Wally, because Wally ran away a lot from home. He went to the Dimby, whatever, however you say that Dibby mission a lot, and that's where he ends up at the very end of this, because his dad sacrificed himself after their big old battle, Wally West and Thawne. He sacrificed himself, and Wally kind of has a mental breakdown, goes on a run, and he basically ends up right back where he started, all the way back in issue 1 at the Dimby mission. And then we have 2 epilogues. We see that the Rogues go off into space and they are basically free agents now, and then it looks like Gorilla Grodd is being teased as the next big bad for Wally West and Absolute Flash. That could lead to some really good character moments between Grodd and Wally, because we know that they have a bond. The small Grodd and obviously Wally, they were basically living with each other and were best friends for a good majority of this series so far. It was okay. I do need to see some more with Absolute Flash issue number 13, because a new story arc is starting there. So if you guys are interested, the next issue of Absolute Flash is a new jumping on point for people. So Absolute Flash number 12, I'm going to give a C+. Next, we go back to another DC comic as we're down to our final 4. We have Poison Ivy, issue number 42. This was a new jumping on point titled Mayor Ivy starts here. This is a 28-page comic for the price of $4. Of course, G. Willow Wilson writes this, and we had Takara on the art, who is the traditional artist. We have a time jump, essentially. We jump all the way past the election. We don't get to see any of that, which I would have appreciated, but this was a new jumping on point, so it seems like they just wanted to get right into the middle of things, right to her being mayor, and kind of jump over all the extracurricular stuff that comes with that. So Pamela is the new mayor, and immediately she has a meeting with Vandal Savage saying like, "Hey, F you, we're going to cut your funding in half. I don't like you." Even though Vandal Savage is trying to play the good guy, and he was defending her whenever somebody was verbally abusing her in the crowd whenever she was making a public appearance, and he basically saluted her, and seems like there might be a mutual understanding growing between them, which could be a bad thing. But then Pamela, she has this little meeting with all these corporate people saying, "Hey, I'm going to put this person in charge of this in charge of this, yada, yada, yada." All her friends essentially putting them on her little staff. And they're like, "You can't do that. They all have to be approved by certain people like politics is." And she says, "No, y'all are corrupt. And you had laws, then you let a bunch of petty tyrants walk all over them. This is the only way to get things done now. You don't get democracy back by wishing." It seems like there's a lot of right now politics going into this comic from G. Willow Wilson, but hey, who knows? You never can really tell. It's also Poison Ivy, who's always been a very political character. We get a visit here from one of the crazy people of Xylon, one of those I can't remember what it is, but basically the Battle of the Green with Bog Venus, and then the Black, I think, with Xylon. I can't quite remember the colors, but essentially this is a callback from Janet Janet from HR, eating Bog Venus, and Xylon's like, hey, there's a war about to happen, and then we leave at the very end because we saw Pamela crying, or at least had tears in her eyes at the very beginning of this comic, and it's basically proven or revealed that her and Harley Quinn might have had a falling out. So Poison Ivy, issue number 42, new jumping on point. It's really solid, one of the more weaker issues for me with G. Willow Wilson, but overall, it was a solid B. Now we go to one of my more favorite comics of the week as we kick off the top 3. This is the only Marvel comic in the top 3, but it was pretty good. We have The Amazing Spider-Man. This is issue number 23, part 2 of 9 of the Death Spiral event. This is a 32-page comic for the price of $5. We start off with Peter having a one-on-one, or more like a one-on-two, with himself, Aunt May, and Ricardo, Aunt May's new whatever you want to call it. But it's a very good, heartfelt conversation that this comic desperately needed to have, because Peter, he was of course off in space, and Ben Reilly was basically ruining everything for him back at home. He ruined his relationships with MJ, his job, Aunt May, and then you just saw Lady Ock and Venom are having a fight in the background. So Peter does what he always does, makes up a poor excuse, and leaves a pretty heartfelt conversation between him and Aunt May. But I'm also going to predict that Aunt May is going to die at the end of Death Spiral. I don't know, it just feels like that's going to happen, or at least Peter's going to reveal that he's Spider-Man to Aunt May, and then she sacrifices herself trying to defend him. I don't know, that's just how I feel like it's going to go. Maybe I'm wrong, hopefully I'm wrong, I love Aunt May. But then MJ reveals herself to Peter that she is Venom, and Peter never knew this. She revealed herself as Venom to Ben Reilly earlier on in the Amazing Spider-Man series from Joe Kelly, but Peter never knew because he was in space. So she's like, oh my god, you actually didn't know. You're not joking. I thought that it was you whenever I revealed it to you, but it wasn't. And then we have Eddie Brock in Carnage, who ended up killing all these butterflies around him, and Brock is like, wait, how are you able to do that? And Carnage says, but your cold turkey, no killing program leaves you pretty shaky, partner. We'd better find the big bad killer soon, or who knows what might happen. Chop, chop, Mr. Brock. And then at the very end, we see the next victim of torment. It's very, very sad. A pretty friendly, not friendly character, but a pretty popular character in the Spider-Man world. He ends up dying. Hopefully, maybe he comes back. I don't know. He looked pretty dead to me, but that was pretty sad. You're gonna have to read it to find out, though. Amazing Spider-Man, one hell of a comic this week. Really good part 2 of what was a building issue from issue number 1 of the Death Spiral event. So Amazing Spider-Man number 23, I gave him A-. Now, for the final 2, we kick it off with Absolute Superman. This is issue number 17, 28 pages for $5. Now, this comic was full of different quotes. The art was beautiful from Juan Ferreira, and it was so graphic. You see Jimmy Olsen just having his eyes pulled apart, and the parasite getting himself crawled into Jimmy Olsen, and it was revealed that in this issue, the parasite can only get into you if you fear it, which obviously makes a lot of sense. Fear of the parasite, and then hope of Superman, and also fear from Hawkman because he was so terrified back whenever we found out the origins of this absolute Hawkman and everything that he went through. A lot of it was because of the fear that he had. But you also saw Superman later in the comic. He had this little one-on-one with Hawkman. It was a good comedic convo, but he basically says that, or Hawkman says, no offense pal, but I'll take you out myself before I let that happen. And then Superman says, in what world is killing me not offensive? I thought that was pretty good, a really good little section. But the comic, of course, shows Parasite taking over, and we get a jump into the mind of Hawkman, who looked absolutely terrified. And you see a baby version of Superman getting into the mind of Hawkman, and basically all the craziness that is going on and all the fear that he has. But at the end of the comic, you see what Brainiac has done to Lex Luthor, but also we see Talia al Ghul take Ra's al Ghul and get him out of the prison in Pakistan. He basically says, apologies Superman, but we are who we are. I'm sorry that I'm doing this, because he knows that Superman had the right idea for him to let him just rot in the prison and die. But Talia, being who she is, the young, very ambitious mind, she knows that we need you, Roz. We need to put you back in the Lazarus fire pits or the Lazarus pits, and then you can become the god that you are meant to be. But there is also a tease that Superman is basically keeping a bunch of these different little things like this parasite creature at his home. So that could maybe lead to something where everybody gets let out of his little mini prison that he has, and that could be a really, really bad situation. But Brainiac and Lex Luthor, that was really disturbing. I feel so bad for Lex Luthor. Yeah, it was pretty terrifying. But Absolute Superman issue number 17, this was an A. This was my second pick, and it just sucks because it sucks that it had to go up against one of the best books that I think has come out in the year 2026, which is DCKO. I mean, I absolutely love this comic. You heard me talk about it on my buy or sell. Just so good. It was a great finale to what was one of the best events that I have read in such a long time. Superman was just so overpowered. Darkseid felt like an absolutely insane threat, and you really felt like, oh my gosh, how are they actually going to beat this guy? But they stopped him momentarily. There's going to be an Act 2, which is why they have the next level event coming through in DC. But DCKO, this was my pick of the week. It was an A+. It sucks that all the other comics, especially Absolute Superman, weren't able to get that top pick. But guys, let me know what you think down in the comments below. What was your number one pick of the week? And I will see you guys next time. But make sure you stay healthy, stay great, and have a great rest of your day.